from Fayetteville Public Library asking me to talk about what are some of the financial changes that people are facing in this COVID-19 world that we're facing. And I was happy to do so. We've worked with the library in the past, always been a good experience, and wanted to be able to pitch in and do this again. We're all facing a lot of different and new things, and we're just trying to keep on top of it, share as much information as possible as we can with people to help them cope with what's going on right now. This particular presentation kind of came out of a resource list that I started putting together about 2-3 weeks ago. At that time, I was getting bombarded with various resource lists from all sorts of organizations, both local and national, and just tips on how to handle this topic or that topic or that topic. And for a while, it almost became too much. There was just so much information coming in. But then I decided to look more closely at it and see what we could share with people locally to help them deal with the problems that they're facing right now. And so what I did was I put together this list, and it's really what I'm organizing the presentation around today. So I've got about 10 different topics. And here you can see dealing with student loans, health guidelines, eviction and foreclosure, unemployment, scams, banking, financial tips or resources in a COVID-19 world, debt collection, credit protection, and economic income impact payments, that is. Now, if you look at that and you say, whoa, that's a whole lot, you're right. So normally I like to provide a lot of depth in the presentations that I give and sacrifice some of the breadth, but today I'm going to be doing a little bit differently. We're going to try to cover a wide range of topics, but in order to kind of help you out, what I did is I have shared that resource list that I put together with you, and you can find that in the chat section of the link here. And then you can go to the various links that I've assembled and look at those topics in greater depth that are important to you. I'm going to go through this relatively quickly so that if you've got any questions along the way, you'll get a chance to ask them, and I'll be able to hopefully answer those questions for you. So that's how we're doing it today. So we are Credit Counseling of Arkansas. There's a picture of our crew. And we have been in business for 25 years now. And this is our 25th anniversary year. Our mission has consistently been to provide leadership as a quality of life of individuals and families through financial education, credit and housing counseling, and debt management services. And we've been working here locally. We're a local nonprofit working in the area. So,
Joel, if I could stop real quick, our screen isn't moving along with you. I don't think you're. No, it doesn't seem to be. Yeah, now I can see that you're moving. If you click on each one.
Oh, okay.
There we go. Okay, sorry about that. I noticed that while you were talking.
That's interesting. Well, thank you. Yeah, I got the display on 2 different screens, and I thought the one that I was moving was the relevant one. But
I gotcha.
Surprise. Okay, so there's the list of topics. Here's the picture of our crew. That's our dog barking in the background. And so let's talk about the first topic here, and that's student loans. If you have a government student loan that is owned by the federal government, you've probably already gotten a notice already about deferment possibilities. And so if you have a Ford Direct loan, or in some cases the FFEL loans that are owned by the government, then you will not have to make any payments until the end of September. And that's a great opportunity because not only are you not having to make payments, but also you are not being listed as being delinquent on your credit report. And a third huge, no interest is being charged. So you're getting a free slide, which is fantastic. The other thing that's good about this is that if your loans are not eligible, like if you've got a FEFL loan that is not owned by the government, you could possibly consolidate it into a Ford Direct loan and then get these benefits before they run out. So for a lot of people, they don't know whether their loans are eligible or not. They don't know whether their loans are government loans or if they're private loans. The best way to find out is to go to the National Student Loan Database System, or NSLDS, and just Google NSLDS, and you'll get a link, and you can log in there. Any loan that shows up on that website of yours is a government loan. And then what I've put together is some links that can help you track whether your loans are eligible or not for this benefit. So I've got two of them there. One is student loan or studentaid.gov, and the other is studentloanborrowerassistance.org. I'm trying to think what else to mention about student loans. Oh, the government loans do have benefits as a result of the CARES Act. Private loans don't necessarily have such benefits, but a lot of private loans will offer you deferments if you are unemployed as a result of the deferment gives you a little bit of breathing room, but what you have to be aware of is that your finance charges are accumulating. So your loan is growing as a result. And so you don't want to scan a deferment unless you have to. The next topic that I added was had to do with health guidelines. I'm going to go over this really quickly because I added this to my resource list 3 weeks ago when there were still questions about social distancing and hand washing and the like. And I think most people are kind of up to date about that. But if you are not, if you haven't read enough about that or haven't found a trustworthy source, the Center for Disease Control, or CDC, has some really good recommendations. And in our resource sheet, I've offered you some fact sheets as well as their list of recommendations. Okay, so the next topic has to do with evictions and foreclosures. Under the CARES Act, there were certain provisions in the CARES Act that protected people from eviction and foreclosure that resulted from problems with income. And a lot of the benefits that you get depend on the type of loan that you have, whether you have an FHA loan, whether you have a loan through Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, a rural development loan. Now, for a lot of people, there's confusion because they think, well, I got a loan through Arvest or Bank of America. But Arvest or Bank of America is most likely the servicer of your loan. That's not the type of loan. And it was the same thing with the student loans. People have asked me, excuse me just a second, I'm going to close the door so my dog doesn't get hurt quite as much. Thank you. So student loans, people get confused because they say, well, I make my payments to Nelnet, so is that a government loan or not a government loan? Well, Nelnet and Great Lakes and Fed Loan Servicing are servicing companies. That's not the type of loan or even who owns the debt. So that's why you need, in the case of student loans, you need to go to that NSLDS website that I mentioned. And that will help you determine whether your loan is a government loan or not, and then also whether what type of government loan it is, if it is a government loan, in fact. And the same sort of thing pops up with mortgages. People don't know whether the loan is FHA. They know that they went to Bank of America or Arvest to get that loan. But that's like like Walmart sells both Coke and Pepsi, right? And other types of cola. So knowing where you bought the product from doesn't necessarily tell you the type of product that it is. And that's the same with mortgage loans. So I've given you some links to on the resource sheet that will kind of show you what benefits that you can get depending on whether your loan is a HUD FHA loan, whether it's a rural development loan, whether it might be held by Freddie Mae or Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. And then in that list of resources, there are also some links that show you how to track it down and how to figure out what type of loan that you have. And along with that, there's fact sheets on what consumers should know about mortgage relief, links on how to determine the loan type, and the CFPB has a video on CARES Act provisions. So if you like getting information by video as opposed to by reading the material, you can get some information that way as well. But there really are some really nice benefits depending on the type of loan. You can get a deferment in the case of FHA loans, government-held loans. Some loans might offer you a forbearance instead. There's a little bit of risk with that because in a forbearance, you're expected to make up the payments later on. What a lot of lenders are doing is that they are going to be allowing you to put the missed payments at the end of the loan, and perhaps even stringing out the loan length to make it easier for you to catch up those loan payments. So that's a benefit as well. All right, so I think if there's anything else about that. Oh, there is also in the CARES Act protections for people who are renters. And there are moratoriums on eviction for renters who fall behind on their payments as a result of the COVID shutdown. So if you are a renter, if you can't make all of your payments and you're trying to decide whether this is one of those payments you should or should not make, rent is very important. But if they cannot evict you, you have a little bit of protection there. The danger there, however, is that you will be expected to make up those missed payments later on. And so I've included a link in there that tells you a little bit about the state summary of what Arkansas is doing and the resources that they have available to help you out there. So that's eviction and foreclosure. For a lot of people, the major financial concern in this era is unemployment. I know I've heard of a lot of people who have struggled trying to get any kind of help with unemployment, that the unemployment offices are packed, there's no social distancing, that it's hard to get through online. But in the resource sheet, I've put together some lists there to help you find out about the temporary boost of unemployment insurance that you can get, and to help you determine whether you are eligible or not. In the past, people who were self-employed were not eligible for unemployment, but that's changed under the CARES Act. The problem that we're facing, however, is that in the state of Arkansas, they don't have the mechanisms in place yet for you to claim unemployment if you were self-employed. I have heard that once they get that in place, however, that you will be able to claim unemployment benefits for the weeks past that they didn't have that mechanism in place. So that could be a great benefit to some people. So Legal Aid of Arkansas has put together a nice website that talks about how you, whether you determine whether you're eligible for particular benefits. and then also the steps that you might need to go through in order to apply for particular benefits. And what they cover in there is not just unemployment, but also SNAP, or what used to be known as food stamps, Medicaid, and paid leave from work as well. So check out that link from Legal Aid of Arkansas if you need any more information on that. Oh, and I ran across something the other day. The University of Arkansas sent out a notice that they were offering some free online dislocated worker training programs. So if you are a dislocated worker and you know you need to work on some skills, but you don't know where to get good training, U of A is offering their training online to you for free. U of A normally charges a pretty hefty price for their training, but if, if this is something that you could benefit from, check out the website, the link that I provided there, and it could provide you with some useful skills as you head back into the job market once we're out of this.
Where is the website and everything? So my name's Linda Jenkins. Where is the website at the University of Arkansas?
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear that. Linda, were you speaking?
Yeah, I was speaking.
Joel, I think she was asking where the website is for that University of Arkansas.
It's on the resource sheet. Is it, can you see that on the resource sheet that I've provided?
I'm not on that screen.
Linda, there's a resource sheet that Joel's made that's in the chat window, but if you like after the program, I can give you my email to everyone that wants it, and then I can email that out and I can get that to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
It's unfortunate that in times of stress like this, the great thing is that people are willing to help each other out, and we just love to see that. That's terrific. The mirror side of that is that the scammers come out from under the rocks and try to separate you from the money that you're getting, perhaps from the stimulus payments or from any other benefits that you might get, or just because they know people that are presently agitated and might be more susceptible to scams. So I put together a section on scams that people should be aware of. So Fannie Mae has one having to do with scams related to housing. Bankrate.com has some scams as well. Actually, I'm going to try to open up one of these and let me know if you see this. Let's see if it gets there.
I don't know what's happened to the voicemail.
Oh, Joel, I think we lost your screen.
Yeah, it went dead a few minutes ago.
Yeah. Are you still sharing your screen, Joel?
Yes, I can see him on the screen.
Oh. There we go. Okay.
Keep in mind that if people are calling you and telling you that you have to provide them with information, in order to get your stimulus check, for example. That's probably a scam. They're just trying to get your personal information. And so there's ways that you can protect yourself, but primarily by being aware of what those scams are and what they look like. And then you can also report scams to the Federal Trade Commission so that they know more about them and that they can help protect people and spread the word. I've talked a little bit about the stimulus checks, and I'm going to go into that a little bit more in just a second, but some people might have heard already that unless you have a bank or a banking relationship, it's going to delay your ability to get those checks. That the money does not, it's much easier for the government to send you that money electronically rather than to have to cut you a check. And so having to cut a check slows the whole process down. So that's why I included a section on banking. If you don't have a banking relationship at the moment, you can establish one fairly easily. And we recommend that you look into the Bank on Arkansas Plus program. It's really a coalition of banks that have decided that it's useful for people to get started with a banking relationship if they can offer a relatively common, simple banking accounts that meet a low-cost set of standards. So you can check out the Bank on Arkansas Plus website and see which area banks participate in that. And they're going to offer you savings accounts, checking accounts at low cost that are simple, easy to manage, and are have little or no fees. And so that's probably all very important if you're just getting started with the banking relationship. As I was putting this list together, I also ran across something that Arvest Bank locally has put into effect. They call them their Arvest Assist loans. And one of the possible loans out of that Arvest Assist is a loan that you can take out as sort of a bridge if you're trying to get your finances to hold together right now, where you don't have to make any payments on the loan for 120 days. So you get that grace period, assuming that the world is back in a better position within 120 days, then you would start making payments on those loans again. But it gives you some options. Again, might help you bridge a period of time when you're not able to make ends meet. So you can check that on the website, the link that's provided in the resources there. This all started, the whole list kind of came out of questions about some of the personal finance tips that people can use in order to improve their situation in these difficult times. And so in this section, I gave you a bunch of resources like tools to stay on top of your finances that's been put together by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, or CFPB. They're a great federal agency that helps people be aware of financial issues and how to improve their financial skills. And I always really like them as a source of information to go to. The other thing they talk about is how do you strategize if you can't afford to pay all of your bills? If you have simply less money coming in, but the same number of bills that you had in the past, it might be necessary for you to just limit which bills you pay. And having those decisions can be very important. And so they give you some suggestions on how to do that. In this area also, I talked a little bit about what different credit card companies are willing to do to help people out. A number of credit card companies have been offering deferment possibilities where you don't have to make a payment on your credit card debt. But you have to call them, you have to request that deferment, you got to explain that the problem is related to the COVID-19 emergency that we're facing. It's not a default thing. So if you've got a credit card and you can't make the payments, give them a call, ask them about any possible deferments, and see if they offer anything. The key question that you want to ask them is, actually, there's two key questions. One is, are they going to hold off on charging you finance charges? If they don't, then your balance is going to be growing because you're not making payments. And so that's not desirable. The other thing you want to ask them is, how are they going to be reporting this to the credit reporting agencies? Some credit card companies have pledged that they're not going to list it as paid late. But you want to ask your credit card company what their policy is on this. But again, in a time when your income might be down and there's just too much to cover, you might have to strategize and decide whether credit card payments are not a top priority right now. And that's one of the things that you can do. There's some guidance in these resources there. Okay. When people fall behind on their debt, typically they start getting harassed by debt collectors. And right now, the last thing you need is additional pressure in your life. So the CFPB has put together a nice page that helps you think through how to deal with this. They give you an overview of what's called the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, which shows you what your rights and responsibilities are as a debtor. And in addition to that, they also have a bunch of sample letters or template letters that you can use. So if you want to tell the debtor, I'm sorry, the creditor, the collection company, that you don't think you owe this debt, they've got a template letter that you can use in order to send that. Or if you think that your name has been confused with somebody else's, again, they have template letters that you can use. And that's all listed in that link that I have provided there. Kind of another side of that is, how do you go about protecting your credit? And the CFPB again has come together with a page that helps you address that. You do have some protections, like on your student loans, they're not going to be listed as late. But one of the things that we just found out recently is that you can now access your credit report much more frequently than you could in the past. For years now, I think since about 2005, the three major credit reporting companies were required to give you free access to your credit report once per year, each of them. And now in this emergency, they have pledged to make that access a weekly access instead. So you can go to your Experian, Equifax, or TransUnion credit report each week and see what's being reported on them. And you do that through the annualcreditreport.com website. And that's a link that I've provided in the resource page. And then bankrate.com also gives you a little bit of some suggestions on how to protect your credit as well. Finally, going to get to the economic impact payments. People have talked about the COVID stimulus checks. That was really never the name of them. The real name for that program was economic impact payments. And but that's the $1,200 that you might be eligible to receive from the government as a way to help bridge the difficulties that people are facing in the COVID crisis. There's a lot of confusion about who is eligible and who is not eligible. And the IRS has a good page that explains the features of that program, as well as the eligibility requirements on it. You do not have to be a wage earner in order to qualify. If you have not filed taxes for the last 2 years, however, the IRS might not know how to get in touch with you to send you your payments. And in that case, you might have to go to the IRS website to give them your contact information. And I've got a link that you can use in the resource sheet that will take you there so that you can provide that information and get that funding sent to you. Oh, I know the other thing that I wanted to mention, kind of going hand in glove with the scams thing. I told you that the actual program name for this is the economic impact payments. So if you get an email or a phone call from somebody who says they're here to help you get your COVID stimulus checks, it's almost certainly a scam, because if they're not using the actual program name of economic impact payment, it's not going to be legit. And nobody's going to be calling you, especially if they're going to be asking you to pay them money in order to help you with this. So those were the 10 topics that I kind of overviewed. I know it was kind of skimming the surface, but the idea behind this was to kind of give you a broad overview, give you that resource sheet where you can follow up more. But I'm also open to answer any questions that you might have at this point on any of those.
Okay. Thank you, Joel. And then I'm going to unmute everyone. If you would like to, if you don't have a question, you can remute yourself. But that way, if you do have a question, you can ask Joel. And again, in the chat window, there is a file for the resource sheet that he mentioned. But if you can't find it or can't seem to download it, or you're on your phone, you can email me, C as in Corey, Williams, C Williams @faylib.org, like the library, or you can email questions@faylib.org and we'll get that to you. But I'm gonna go ahead and unmute everyone. Okay. Did anyone have a question for Joel?
Well, I don't have a question, but I've been keeping up with Inside Edition, and they said that now the PEPCIN is now being used, and it's working to help people out and everything. And one of the countries that has finally gotten rid of the COVID virus and is back on with their economics and everything is New Zealand. They got it down to one case, and they showed people, the news showed people at work and everything, they weren't wearing masks and gloves anymore.
Corey, were you able to hear her? I could not make it out.
She was saying that, talking about how New Zealand has pretty much eradicated the disease at this point, is what she was talking about. Did anyone else have a question for Joel?
This is Debbie.
Hi, Debbie.
Hi. I have a question about if you become unemployed, what options are there for maintaining medical insurance?
Well, you can go on the public exchange and apply for coverage there. With your income as low as it is, if you're unemployed, then any premiums that you'd be charged with, I would suspect, would be quite low, if not non-existent. You can also get COBRA coverage, but COBRA coverage is you paying the premium that your employer used to pay, and so that's usually too expensive for most people, especially if they're out of work. But the COBRA, going on the exchange would be the two things that come to mind.
So I don't know what you mean by go on the public exchange.
Oh, okay. Obamacare, commonly known as the Affordable Health Care Act.
Okay.
And so there is an online exchange that you can go to, and you can select from um, different options. There's gold, silver, and bronze level of coverage. The gold being more expensive, of course. But you can choose your coverage, choose different companies. Uh, Independent insurance agents can also steer you through this. You don't have to pay them out of pocket. And let's see, there were local agencies that used to be helping with this as well. I can't, I would maybe just Google Obamacare or healthcare exchange and see what the link is to check that out.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other questions?
I have a question. This is Leah. And I was wondering, Joel, in your opinion, for someone like me that's lucky enough to still be working and earning a paycheck for the time being anyway, what do you think is the most impactful way to use the not the stimulus check. I'm sorry, I forgot what the right word for it was, but the money from the government.
Sure, the economic impact payments.
Yes, yes. Is it, debt payment, putting it back into the economy, putting in savings? What do you think?
I would say if you don't already have an emergency fund, use it to build up an emergency fund to deal with unexpected expenses. If you already have an well-established emergency fund that you can fall back on later on, then I would say start looking at what are some of the more costly debts that you have. So anything that has a high interest rate is costing you the most. Try to clear that off, but also pledge not to run that debt back up as well. You can invest, certainly. People are a little bit squeamish about investing right now simply because of the instability of the markets. But now is when the price of stocks is low, so it's not a bad time to invest. It's just choosing the right ones that are not going to tank eventually. But I would say build an emergency fund, pay down debt, as long as your income is secure. If your income is not secure, then just hold on to it and deal with what comes in the next couple of months. But otherwise, those would be my suggestions.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions? And Joel, if anyone thinks of any questions, is there a way for them to contact you at CCOA?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. My email is joeld@ccoacares.com. Joel D as in dog at ccoacares.com. And I might just point out that at CCOA, we offer a variety of different services. We offer financial education like we're doing here today. In better times, we try to do this in person as well. We also offer basic counseling so that if a person just wants to have a counselor look over their finances and get an assessment of how, given their income and expenses and payments to creditors, they can better achieve their financial goals. We'll give you some guidance on that. There's no cost for that either. We offer a credit report review service where even if you access your credit report, you don't know how to make heads or tails of it, we can do that for you. There is a small fee for that, but it's quite manageable. We're a housing counseling agency as well. So we do pre-purchase counseling. We have a home buyer education class. We do reverse mortgage counseling for seniors. And we do mortgage delinquency counseling. So if you're struggling to make your house payments, we can help you work with your mortgage company to try to find the best possible outcome. We do student loan repayment counseling, pre-filing bankruptcy counseling, and we also offer a debt management program so that if you have unsecured debts like credit cards or medical debts, we can consolidate payments, make one payment to us, we disperse it to your creditors. Credit cards are almost universally reduce interest rates and waive any late and over limit fees going forward, so it becomes much more manageable to pay that off. So we offer a lot of services. We've been here in the community for 25 years. We're here to help. Even with everything shut down, we're able to do all of our counseling by phone. And so give us a call if we can help you.
And I actually have a question for you, Joel. My parents are kind of nearing retirement. They were planning to retire in the next couple of years, but obviously their 401k has taken kind of a hit. Is there anything that like people who are wanting to retire could be doing during this time to maybe improve anything, or do you have any advice on that?
Well, there are standard things that you can do, like through life, we kind of accumulate expenses that we don't give a second thought to. And whether it's a gym membership, whether it's Netflix or Amazon Prime or whatever it happens to be, look over those expenses and ask yourself, are they important? And if not, don't be afraid of jettisoning them and hold on to that, some of that money that is flowing out instead. So that can be one step. Just kind of keep a closer eye on finances. If you need some help looking at that, our basic counseling sessions would help you kind of refine what your financial goals are and see if you're on the path to getting there. Okay. And so we can assist that way.
Thank you. Were there any more questions before we end today? I think that might be it. Thank you so much for doing this, Joel, and really appreciate it. Also, just a note to everyone that is listening that we are doing these sessions every Thursday, and we're covering different topics. And next week we are covering coping with social distancing. Amy Butler from a counseling center here in Fayetteville is going to be talking about that. And if you have any suggestions for topics that you want to hear, please let us know, Leah or I. But my email again is cwilliams, as in Corey Williams, @faylib.org. And just let us know what you want to hear. And you can use the same link that you used to get to this one to access the others on Thursday. So, but again, thank you so much, Joel, for spending time with us and helping us out.
You're very welcome, anytime.
Thank you all. A good rest of all of your day.